The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, see everything we do. Thank you.
Well, hello. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. Today you're going to learn about capturing architecture in plein air with the great Brian Stewart. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi there, I'm Brian Stewart. It's really nice to have you along here today. We're in beautiful Maine in the National Park of Acadia. We've had 3 hard days of rain here, and now we have beautiful clearing skies, and we're here on the late afternoon, and I'm going to do a study of this harbor scene, which features one of my favorite things to paint, which is architecture. I think architecture is challenging, it demands good drawing, and some skills that straightforward landscapes don't require. And I'm going to see if I can pass along some information and some knowledge to you that will help you if you decide to take on this subject matter. I'm a firm believer that learning to paint and paint outdoors is an acquirable skill. I think anybody can learn to do it to a pretty good level of competence, providing if they have about 5 or 6 basic facts and knowledge, and they're willing to do the work that's required. By that I mean the brush mileage, because it really is just brush mileage. Once you have a certain knowledge of things, and if you are willing to get out there and dirty up a lot of canvases, you'd be amazed at how good of work you can produce. I have a method of painting which has worked real well for me that I learned in my atelier training, and where I've adapted some of the classical academic things from the 19th century, and I employ that in the work that I'm going to do here today. It's a little bit slower, but I think it achieves the kind of results that I'm looking for. I tend to do paintings that are perhaps a little bit tighter or more detailed, and but that's what I like to do. The nice thing about plein air painting is it is not a style. It can accommodate a lot of different looks. It's more of a method of taking your canvas out and just setting up in front of nature and going for it. Before I start to paint here and tell you how I paint, I'd like to just go over my equipment real quick. I paint on a traditional French easel. It's a Julian. It's the first easel I bought and the only easel I've ever owned. It has a nice patina to it now, and it kind of looks like me. But I could certainly replace it, but it has such sentimental value, I continue to use it. A lot of the younger painters have gone towards lighter weight easels with perhaps a little bit more portability, but I stick by this one. When I'm set up in the field like this, I feel like I'm at the office and this is my desk. I'm going to be painting on a canvas panel here, a cotton. I prefer painting on cotton when I'm in the field. I use linen when I'm in the studio. I have toned it with cadmium yellow and wiped off the excess. It has just a little bit of yellow tinge to it, which I hope to unify the painting and bring it all together with nice warm tones, because the scene that I'm painting here is sundown, late afternoon, and it has a very nice warm quality to it. I prefer painting on canvas as opposed to panels that are gessoed, because nothing pulls the paint off the brush like canvas does, and that's true for 300 years. So it's a real good surface. I have my palette that I set on my table here, and my palette is set up just like this. It's basically a turn-of-the-century landscape painter's palette. And by that I mean it's a warm and cool of each primary. It's a cool lemon yellow, cadmium light for a warm yellow. I'll skip this right now. This is my warm red, and this is my cool red, which is an alizarin. And today I'm using ultramarine blue, about 2/3 ultramarine blue mixed with about 1/3 of Prussian blue. I find that I like that mixture for capturing some of the notes that I see in marine style scenes. Sometimes I paint with just straightforward ultramarine blue. I have a little bit of ivory black out here. I don't use it very much, but I like to have it. And I have brown for knocking down colors and graying things. It's a transparent oxide brown. Getting back to this is cadmium orange. I utilize it because there's so much blue in a landscape that orange is the complement of it, and it's a real quick way to gray down the paint. I could get along without it. You could paint with a much more restricted palette than this, just with the cadmium yellow, the red, and the blue. Continuing on with my palette, I'm using titanium white, Winsor Newton titanium white. I feel that it has, it holds up against the tinting strength of my colors, and I've always favored that. In my thinning cups here is just odorless thinner. I don't use any medium when painting out of doors. I've never have understood the need for it. I try and use the paint as it comes out of the tube as near as possible, and this has worked well for me. I try and keep one for darker colors and one for lighters, but in the heat of battle when you're doing a plein air study, that goes by the wayside and you're just mixing everything everywhere. So anyway, that pretty much is my equipment. In the back of my easel, I have clean brushes on one side and dirty brushes on the other, and supplementary colors here, and a palette knife to mix with, razor blades to scrape down with, a plumb line to make sure things are straight, a mirror to look at the painting. After you get about 2 hours into it, you really can't see it anymore. You become blind to it, and it's good to look at it backwards. So anyway, that's basically, in a nutshell, is my equipment. In a bag here, I have additional things. I guess what I would like to encourage you to do is try and pare your equipment down to as little as possible. When I teach workshops, people come with shopping carts full of equipment and everything and stuff they don't need. After you've painted for a while in the field, you'll learn that what you need and what you don't need. So with that, you know, let's get started here, because the sun is moving, and we don't have that much time, and I'm going to see what I can do here, because we have a real complex scene. When I build a painting, I build it with about 4 skins, or layers is which I call them. When you're doing a painting, it's like a juggling act. You have like 4 balls that you're continually trying to keep in the air. One of the balls is drawing, another one is values, the relative light and darkness of things. The third one is color, the correct color temperature. And the 4th one is edges. And so you're always concerned with all of those. When I build a painting with those 4 layers, I try and be aware of all of those. I start with, my first layer is a drawing, and I try and do a very accurate but very economical drawing. And what I mean by economical is, I mean not a whole lot of lines. I just try and put in the basic shapes. When I build a painting, I try and build it in 4 layers or skins. The first layer is the drawing. When I do a drawing, I'm trying to get down just the basic information. I'm not trying to get every single detail. I'm just trying to get the big shapes and try and get the proper angles and the proper shapes. One of the tools that I find that works really well for good drawing is this viewfinder. I got this in the first workshop I ever took from Clyde Aspavig, and I figured if it was good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Even Van Gogh used one of these. He drew a picture of it in one of his letters to Theo, and I thought it was really interesting. Those aren't the reason I use it, however. The reason I use it is because I'm able to get a really accurate drawing real fast. I'm able to find paintings and compose them. I even drive around in the car with one of these on the seat, and I'm able to look at things and just see how they frame out and how they compose. So it's a real good, helpful tool. But by putting it up like this and using my thumb as a hallmark for something like the railing there, and then the side of the building, I'm able to put it up and bring it down, paint it, put it up, and make observations until I get it just the way I want it. And for instance, like, let's just start right now. And I also take my brush and I hold it out, I get a sense of the angles. The front of this building is roughly right about there. The bottom of the building is roughly right about there. When I draw, I use straight, committed lines, and I try and do it as deliberate point of that building is right about there. It's about that high. So you might think a viewfinder like this is cheating, but it's not. It's just being very smart and practical, I think. And the ridge of that roof is at an angle about like that. I can put my brush up and bring it right down and get a sense of that perfect angle. And as you see, as you can almost start to see, the center of that turret on that building is right about there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer I can get it, the better. Because as I paint the painting, I'm going to continue to draw it and refine the drawing. Because painting is drawing as well as drawing is. Okay. And then the water line below those buildings that are out there are about like that. Now, I don't really need any more information down there than that. I have put enough there that I can go ahead and start this painting, because I'm going to do the rest of it as complete the drawing as I actually paint it and define these shapes. That's all I really need right there. So that's layer one, basically my drawing. From there, I'm going to do a lay-in. And what I mean by a lay-in is I'm just going to block in the major large areas, no detail at all yet. One of the problems that I find in workshops is students have a tendency to want to put in all of the embellishments and the detail before they get the big overall foundation built. So what I'm trying to do is get the foundation here. Famous Russian impressionist had a great saying. He says, most students' problem is they sign the painting first, then they paint the fleas, and last they paint the dog. And what I'm trying to do is get the dog painted here first. And I'm trying to get the color as accurately as I can. Now this is just a lay-in. It's not my final painting or my final attempt. So with that in mind, let me forge forward here and start to lay this in. And when I lay it in, I'm going to lay it in using big brushes. I like to use big brushes because you can mix up a lot of paint, you know, very rapidly you get big puddles that you will use and in mixing up other paint, and it's a way to unify the painting. And it's very fast and it's very economical. I know some painters who paint with just one brush. You know, for instance, there's a number 8, there's a 6, there's a 4. Okay, I paint a lot with the edge of the brush. So with that in mind, let me try and get this laid in as best I can. And I'm going to try and hit the values right on. By values, I mean the relative light and dark of everything, as if we were taking a black and white photograph of this scene. When I teach workshops, I have my students paint in black and white, do black and white value studies the first day. It improves their color so much in the latter days of the workshop. So just thick enough to be opaque, because what I'm putting down is just a guide to the painting that I'm going to do. This is just a lay-in. It's not the finished painting. Nothing here will appear in the final product. I'm going to go back and repaint it. But for right now, I have to try and get some information down that will be a guide. I have a saying that I tell my students: an outdoor painting is just like life. It's just a series of corrected mistakes. And what I have to do is I have to get something down here so that I have something to correct. So I'm not concerned about getting it perfect. This thing of painting, one of the reasons I think it's a spiritual journey is it's about progress, not perfection. I just try and get it better and move it along and not make it perfect the first time around. One of the most important tools you have in painting is this, a paper towel. I like nice absorbent ones. I'm using some of my sky color here to mix up the distant hills. I want to push those hills way back. When things go back into the distance, you get less contrast, and yellow and orange drop out. You get real strong blues. It's called atmospheric perspective, and it happens because we're looking through suspended water. just trying to get the big, broad essence of this scene. And hit those color notes as closely as I can. And you will see here, even though what I'm really trying for here, what I'm really painting is just shapes. I could almost, like if I had colored paper that I could cut out and paste it down, that's the effect that I'm trying to get at this particular time. So I'm starting to get things covered here. There's a shadow area on that house, and then there's a lit area. Things that are in shadow tend to be cool because they're not being hit by the warm yellowish quality that sunlight has. Things that are in sunlight, of course, tend to have a lot of yellow in them. Okay. I'm really rushing here, trying to get the color notes. If it were to cloud up now and turn back into a rainy day, I could paint it from my lay-in if I have the right information down there.
In the world of outdoor painters, one painter is known as the house painter, world-renowned for his paintings of architecture, of interesting buildings, of houses with character, of shiny trailers and colorful cottages. Now, as part of the Plein Air Painters of America series, Streamline presents Brian Stewart, Painting Architecture. Join this highly respected, classically trained artist as he demonstrates his outdoor painting technique, painting a fisherman's house in plein air. See Brian's process from step to step, from determining an interesting composition to creating the painting foundation, all the way through the completion with his essential 4-step program, including the important final touches to make the building look just right, and the difficult decisions he encounters along the way. You'll find his techniques refreshing and substantially different from other painters. Architecture can be a difficult subject and has to be painted a lot differently than landscapes. Learn how to make your buildings look more accurate, yet painterly, how to make them feel like part of the landscape, and the little tricks on edges and windows and doors and capturing values, distant buildings, and more. It's a must-have program. Painting Architecture from Brian Stewart, now on DVD.
Well, that was the great Brian Stewart, capturing architecture in plein air. You can learn more about the full video at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, we have a very special discount code for you today, only in the comments section. Now, let's get right to our interview with Brian Stewart.
I think plein air is just painting from nature, you know.
Absolutely.
Whether you're doing it indoors, out, nighttime, daytime, you know, you're honoring the natural world. That to me is just, that's my only criteria.
So, Brian Stewart, thanks for being here and giving us some time tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
I kind of I'm curious to get into your head a little bit. You know, you and I were out together earlier, and I really want to understand what makes you tick. What is it that gets you up every day and makes you go out and paint and makes you be inspired by all of this?
Well, this might be more than you want to know.
I'll let you know.
I'm a recovering alcoholic, and you know, any 12-step program, you know, one of the requirements or things you're encouraged to do is have a relationship with a higher power. And that was a real struggle for me when I gave up booze, and as it is most guys who are in that kind of program. And I, at the time that I gave up booze is about the time I started painting outdoors. And I didn't start painting outdoors because of that, but little did I know that that would supply me with that spiritual connection, if you will, because I just think it's pretty hard to, you know, to paint outdoors and just look at not just the natural world, but the man-made world as well, and just not have a sense of awe about it and just think, geez, there's more to this than we know, you know. So, like I say, that might be more than what you want to know.
I think it's really, you know, I find that not all, but a very high percentage of people that I meet that paint because they feel a spiritual connection, whether, you know, for some it's God, for others it's just whatever else they think it might be.
Right.
But, you know, I sense that either they get it after they start painting, or they get it, they have it and then they go looking for it, you know, looking to fulfill it by starting to paint.
Right.
So I think it can go both directions.
Right.
Now, so alcoholics typically have addictive personalities. So are you addicted to painting? Did that replace the addiction?
No, I wouldn't say I'm addicted to painting. You know, I have a diverse amount of interests and hobbies and other skills that take me away from painting a lot.
What are they?
Well, I play the banjo.
Do you?
I'm a hobby musician, and I put a lot of time in on that. I play for dances and stuff like that. I play with fiddlers. I'm interested in American old-time fiddle music, and collect a lot of fiddle tunes and arrange them for banjo and stuff
Really?
like that.
So
yeah.
you're obviously more than a hobbyist if you're playing gigs.
Well, you know, an alcoholic personality tends to get kind of driven and compulsive about stuff, and you tend to, you know, if you play for 30 years or 35 years, you get to the point where you get pretty proficient. But let's put it this way, when I'm around really good musicians, I know what a good musician really is and how they're wired, and it's a lot different than a hobbyist like myself.
Well, that's how I feel when I get around guys like you who are such good painters. You know, I feel like I'm relatively proficient, but when you start making comparisons, they're so far up. Of course, you know, it's that old adage of 10,000 hours or 100,000 hours devoted to something makes such a difference, but some of them just have it no matter what.
They do, but you know, it's like I tell people in workshops, you know, I think a certain amount of this is an acquirable skill.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just brush mileage. If you're willing to do the work, you know, and put in the hours, you can do it. And I think I'm evidence of that when I play the banjo. You know, but other things I'm interested in is, you know, house remodeling and building stuff with my hands, and I have a great appreciation for, you know, craft, and I used to collect a lot of arts and crafts stuff. I had a lot of Stickley and stuff like that, and I was into the arts and crafts movement. And that's one of the things I started when I started doing plein air painting. I started framing. I was trying to look for a way, or kind of a hook, if you will. I didn't think I was that good of a painter, but I thought if I put arts and crafts style paintings on the frames on the paintings, that, you know, I might be able to tap into a certain market there, and it worked. It worked for me. I used to go to these arts and crafts shows, like the Grove Park Inn Arts and Crafts Conference.
Fabulous show.
Yeah, in Asheville, and I showed at that for about 10 years and sold a lot of paintings there with my own frames on them. You know, and I could have very easily gone into the framing business making those kind of frames. I was asked by a lot of people to do it, but I wanted to be a painter. And
So
you know,
you're doing quarter-sawn
oak,
yeah.
yeah, with mortise and tendon joints and
That's quite a skill.
the dowels and what have you.
So we have a lot of people watching this who are aspiring to become good painters. You've talked about how anybody can get to a certain level of proficiency by practice and studying. What other advice do you give to painters, students, and so on that are really trying to get good at their craft?
Well, like so many things, it gets to the basics. You know, a large percentage of the people that I encounter in workshops, you know, they haven't really honed their drawing skills. So I think that's really important, you know, for people to draw a lot. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can go to co-ops in your local community, or just draw your hand. You have a model with you all the time. That is the hardest thing in the world to draw right there. And it'll do so many different things. One time I had a woman in a workshop and I gave her that as an assignment, you know, not an assignment, but she asked me how can she improve her drawing skills. And I said, draw your hand once a day, every day for 90 days. It's kind of a meditative kind of thing, you know, and you only have to spend 5 or 10 minutes on it. And she, at the end of 90 days, she sent me a stack of Xerox copies of her hand drawings, each one dated. And the progress was amazing.
Really?
Yeah, just so you know, it's the fundamentals like that, and I think trying to do it with a fair amount of consistency and taking time for yourself. I mean, we all have busy lives and families and what have you, but I think you have to be just a tad bit selfish and say, you know, this is for me, and I need to do this, and make time for yourself, and hopefully you have, you know, understanding spouses and what have you that encourage it, you know.
So you approached plein air painting a little bit differently, in the sense that you started out with traditional academic training, going through somewhat of the atelier system.
Right.
Tell me about that, and tell me how that has impacted your work, and perhaps the benefits that people could take away from that.
Okay, well, when I left advertising, I was looking for art training, and I looked all over the country, and lo and behold, in my own backyard was the atelier system, which you know, was started by Richard Lack in Minneapolis. And basically, he didn't invent anything; he just resurrected 19th century academic training, and most of it was founded on a lot of cast drawing and a lot of figure drawing. And it was hard for me to do that because I was about 47 years of age, you know, and it was a real strict discipline kind of thing. And, you know, you sharpen your pencil a certain way, and you know, you have to do things, you know, in a very structured kind of strict way. But I gutted through it, and it was real good, because what I learned, that kind of training really wasn't about learning how to draw or paint. It was really about learning how to see, raising your level of observation. And because it's just amazing when, through those exercises, when you have to push a charcoal drawing, for instance, of a cast study, you'll work on it for weeks, sometimes months, and it's amazing how the scales just fall off your eyes from just pushing it further and refining it more and more and more and more. You know?
I've never heard anybody say that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's you really get so you can see. So I like that training. I'm not a big fan of the atelier work in the academic style, if you will. I think plein air has some inherent qualities that is far more attractive than academic work. But I tried to take from that ability to see, and kind of the way they constructed a painting and good drawing, and adapt it to plein air work.
So how do you approach your work differently? You have 4 steps in your demo you did 3 of the 4.
Right.
What was missing?
The correction layer, because I was so pressed for time because the light was waning. Generally speaking, when I teach a class, we go through 4 steps. Initially the drawing, and then the lay-in, and then we correct the lay-in, and then we repaint it again in the final stage of the finish. Basically, when I do an outdoor painting, is I'm painting it twice. You know, we've all, I think each and every one of us has done a plein air painting, and it didn't turn out so well, and you come back on a subsequent day, paint the same exact scene under the same light conditions, and you paint it better because you're familiar with the scene, you've been over it once, you have a plan, you know how you're going to do it, and you can execute it better. That's kind of what I do. Now, when I do a plein air painting, I do a more elaborate lay-in or a more accurate lay-in than a lot of artists do. A lot of plein air painters just paint immediately to a finish. That's wonderful if you can do it, but I'm finding that most of the people that I run across, myself included, benefit from that additional time spent in terms of sneaking up on it. I call it a dress rehearsal, you know, and then when you paint it with looseness and bravura. I don't think my demo that I did yesterday showed that real well, because we were just, you know, we were rushing just to get it done. I was just trying to get the notes down. I could take that painting, all the information there is correct, and I could really do a nice studio painting from it because I have the notes. They're there. I did the note taking. I just didn't get a chance to add the polish and the nice surface quality to it that I like to have in a painting.
What got you into the painting? How did you transition? You were in the advertising business, working at an advertising agency, a pretty major agency in Minneapolis.
Right.
How did you transition to becoming a painter?
Actually, I had always wanted to paint outdoors. When I was 16, I dated a girl in Pasadena, California. Her daughter was a prominent doctor, and he was the doctor to Allison Clark, who was one of the great California impressionists back in the earlier part of the century. And their house was full of Allison Clark paintings. Allison had paid him in paintings. And this was at the end of Allison's life. And as a kid, when I was 15 and 16, I used to walk around that house and I'd look at those paintings. I had my nose up on them all the time, and they were magical to me. And then I thought, someday I want to learn how to paint like this, you know? Because I mean, I was interested in art as a kid. That's where I got my strokes. That's about the only thing I excelled in, that and athletics. So, you know, I never got around to that. I got saddled with responsibility and had to earn a living, what have you. And the advertising art direction career is what got me. And I kind of became a victim of the Peter principle, where I just evolved to a level of where I was incompetent. I found myself, you know, running a department of 22 people, and I didn't have the skills or the training. I didn't go to school for that. You know, I was just a really, really good art director. And what I learned is, if you're any good at something, they usually promote you to the point where you're not good at anything. Right. You know, so I found myself doing that, and then I left the big agency scene, and I teamed up with a young guy who was a hotshot account executive, and we started an agency together, and we just got real lucky, and we got some really good accounts and did a lot of great work. And 4 years later, you know, I was at a point where I was just, I needed a change. I was just burnt out, and he was able to buy me out, and it didn't make me a wealthy man, but it gave me enough money to where I could breathe for a few years and go to school. And I went and lived over in Europe for a year and tried to start plein air painting over there. And then I decided to do the atelier training, and I did that. And then after the atelier training, I thought, this is it. I want to paint outdoors, and I got in my van and I just drove all over the United States doing outdoor paintings. In the early 90s, I did a lot of paintings.
So you're driven very much by doing architecture. You kind of call yourself the house painter.
Well, you know, yes, but that came about almost through necessity. I got real lucky. I got a break, and I got a chance to go paint over on Catalina with the Plein Air Painters of America in the early days. I think 1990 was my first year there. And I was painting pretty much straightforward landscapes at that particular time. And I found that there were so many good painters painting there, you know, that could actually paint, you know, straightforward landscapes and harbor scenes a lot better than I could. And I was looking for a way to, you know, to try and find my own voice and
Like
maybe
a good advertising guy, you're looking to differentiate.
Yeah, exactly. It was positioning is what I was trying to do. You know, I was trying to find my position, and I thought, I'm gonna, you know, paint architecture and man-made objects and try some nocturnes and you know, I was a product of the streets, you know, and I've always been interested in funk and junk and people and stuff like that. So I started doing that, and I tried not to take myself too seriously. I did paintings that almost some were even humorous, you know. I painted one time at the Catalina show. I painted a painting of a toilet, you know, and they weren't going to let it into the show. And then somebody says, "No, hang it," and that painting lasted 20 seconds. It just sold just like that, you know, and. The Catalina show was a great training ground for me in terms of seeing what other artists do, how they work, how they think, and seeing collectors, what they respond to, and just what a good show.
There's never been a plein air show like that Catalina show since then.
No, it had magical ingredients. The locale, the facility that it was in, the interest of plein air at the time, and everybody has tried to duplicate that around the country, and some are doing great, you know, they're doing really nice jobs, but never will they ever duplicate the magic of Catalina. To see a couple hundred collectors stampeding up the ramps to get up there, elbowing one another out of the way, you know, to get at those paintings and to see and watch them just fly off the easel. It was like, my God, I've never seen anything like it since.
I never had either. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really was. So anyway, that's what started me painting architecture and funk and junk. I felt like I kind of found my voice there, and I did some interiors. And some people kind of scratched their head at what I was painting, but and the other reason I did it was because I felt I had a couple of skills that were like good drawing. I mean, if you're going to draw straightforward landscapes, mountains and clouds, your drafting skills don't have to be quite what they are if you're going to do an interior with people or paint a bridge or something like that. You gotta draw well.
Yeah, that's right. So, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I don't have any illusions about being remembered as an artist. I'm happy to be doing this. It's really, it's served me well, like I said, from a spiritual point of view. I think what we're enjoying now, this resurgence and interest in plein air painting, is a nice thing. But I think basically what we're doing, it's an anachronism. It's a throwback to an older era. And as to how I'm remembered in that, I don't know that plein air painting is going to be remembered that well 100 years from now, I guess if someone does make any notice of me, it would be for a guy who had just a little bit different point of view and a little bit different take on art, and didn't take it quite so seriously and had fun with it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
What's the one thought you want to leave
with the audience, the person who's trying to learn to paint, the person who's trying to improve?
Be yourself, don't emulate. Don't paint the tired, hackneyed themes of the 19th century. Try and get to know what you want to share with people in paint, the stories that you want to tell, what you want them to see and feel, and what you want them to know about you. I think so many artists today, I look at their work, I don't get a sense of the artist at all. You know, I want people to look at my work and get a sense of who I was and what I was interested in. You know, like when I paint a painting of a turret lathe, it's because I'm interested in old machinery, you know. I want them to know me. I don't want my paintings to be generic and just be another same old, same old. The art world does not need one more painting of a woman in a white dress strolling through a rose garden, you know. And I just...
It hit me, you're right.
You know.
It's like, okay, it's been done well.
Yes, it has, and I'm not going to do it any better. So, you know, if I were to give advice to anybody, it would be, you know, step up in front of the mirror, get to know yourself. What do you want to say? What do you want to tell? And, you know, there's artists we know them all. We get a sense of who they are and what they're interested in and what they want to share. And then there's other ones that's just totally innocuous. Just, you don't get a sense of the person at all, you know. So.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Well, thanks. I hope you got what you wanted.
Absolutely.
Well, that was Capturing Architecture with Brian Stewart. You can learn more about the full video at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, today only, there's a special discount for you in the comments section. Thank you for watching.
In the world of outdoor painters, one painter is known as the house painter, world-renowned for his paintings of architecture, of interesting buildings, of houses with character, of shiny trailers and colorful cottages. Now, as part of the Plein Air Painters of America series, Streamline presents Brian Stewart, Painting Architecture. Join this highly respected, classically trained artist as he demonstrates his outdoor painting technique, painting a fisherman's house in plein air. See Brian's process from step to step, from determining an interesting composition to creating the painting foundation, all the way through the completion with his essential 4-step program, including the important final touches to make the building look just right, and the difficult decisions he encounters along the way. You'll find his techniques refreshing and substantially different from other painters. Architecture can be a difficult subject and has to be painted a lot differently than landscapes. Learn how to make your buildings look more accurate, yet painterly, how to make them feel like part of the landscape, and the little tricks on edges and windows and doors and capturing values, distant buildings, and more. It's a must-have program. Painting Architecture from Brian Stewart, now on DVD.